Let's go over some of the things we're gonna need to make a 3-inch PVC pipe no waste feeder. Drill bits. If you don't have like a huge pack, one of the drill bits is, this is gonna be the size, the hole saw we're gonna use on it. You wanna get about 3 bits that go a little bit smaller, little bit smaller, little bit smaller, until you've got tiny up to right below this size. Then I've got hole saws. I'm blessed to have a whole pack and a whole pack. Those are really good. So on that one, I'm gonna use the 1.5-inch hole saw. And on these, I'm gonna use it to drill through the wood. I've got, in reality, they don't make an exact 3-inch, but this right here just drills it snug, just snug enough to go around the pipe. So this pipe is exactly 3.5 inches, but you got to measure them, because this one is exactly 3 3/8. So I think we can get away with this one. Gonna need those, a drill. You need 2 elbows. Do not get the sharp 45 or 90, whatever elbows these are. You want to get the long swooping ones. And this side right here, the way they're designed is to flow this way. So you want to make sure this is going to be on the bottom portion. Then I've got a Dremel. Don't have to have this, but it makes life much easier. You don't have to hand sand. Then you're going to need a pencil, a board, a 2x4, which I don't have laid up here, but I've got these here. Why do I have these here? Do not try to use these style bits when you're drilling the holes out for the feeder. These right here are specifically designed for wood, and it will just wobble. Will it work? Yes. Will you do 3 times the sanding? Yes, you will. Don't want those. You want to specifically get hole saws. These you can roughly get for 10 to 15 bucks. They're made for PVC. I do use them on wood, but I drill very slowly, reverse it, take my time to not heat these bits up at all. Even when you're drilling through PVC or cutting or even dremeling it, I don't stay in one area too long. I'll move around really fast, because if you heat up a section, even though it's sanding, it gets hot and it will melt it. Same with this hole saw, the 1.5 inch. I take it easy. You know, if I feel this getting hot, usually between knocking the piece of plastic out of the hole saw, it'll cool down. But if you notice this getting hot, please give it a break, wait for it to cool down, and continue drilling. You will melt it, it will mess it up. I've had it happen. But this is what we need. Today I'm gonna be doing a 1-angled. We're gonna be making that right there. And we're gonna be using 1 elbow with a cap on the end. They do have the large caps, and then they have a test cap which you can put inside here. All right, this is what we're using. It's a test cap. It fits in here it'll fit in here very, very snug. I mean, pop in. It does not come out easy. Now, if you're popping in and out a lot, eventually it's not going to be as strong, and it will start kind of smoothing the edge out. But I'm going to use that on these feeders, because these are like $1 or $2 versus getting an actual cap, which is what I'm using on those feeders. But these are outside feeders. I get those high dollar caps to keep moisture and stuff out of them. I'm making these feeders for my brooder, so I don't have to worry about moisture, but I still have to worry about protection, and I can use these cheap little test caps. So that's what we need. This is the list of supplies. You can be creative, and also you are going to need a saw to cut this stuff down. If you do not have a saw, you can use a hand saw. I am going to be using a table saw to rip this board down, but you know, be creative, but be careful when you're ever building a project like this. Just real quick, this is how I do a straight line. I put my board up here, then I take the pencil, draw a good straight line, and that's how you get it perfect right there. Line here, if you'll notice, these have marks on them, and if you line that up with the mark, it gets it dead center at perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-drill a hole right here I've got about 3 different size bits. That one, the other one over there, one that's on it, and then that one right there. And I'm gonna work my way up to it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this and mash it on this pipe as hard as we can, keep it on the line. Then we're gonna drill this out. I'm gonna mark it all down. Doing my feeder, I'm having to make some more, and let me show you, I actually didn't realize this until I was attaching them. I was putting a screw in my feeders to hold them, but I didn't like doing that. And when I made these, I realized something. When I trimmed the actual, feeder part here, when I cut this all the way out to the edge, and there's nothing at the end here, it encloses and it does not stay in my elbow very well. So what I'm doing today is I drilled it out right here on the end. I kind of did a pre-hole. Let me show you, let me grab this other one. I just started me a hole right at that little end right there. I started with the small, then kind of gradually worked my way up, and I'm actually gonna start my first hole with the elbow on it. Then I'm gonna start my measurements for my spacing between them and to the end. This is the first time I've done it, so let me pop this off here and see what we have. Now, as you can see here, it was a test run for me, but it worked out perfectly. It gave me just enough meat on the end here to be able to still, for the birds to reach in there and get feed, but for the pipe to stay in place snugly without it just coming out. That way I don't have to put any screws in this, because I don't want any screws coming through. I was having to shave them down to hold this together better. But let's take a look at what we did here. Now that I know where my hole is, I would have done like a 1/2 inch here on the end, or actually that's right at about 3/8. But since I kind of started that hole a little bit differently, I want a 1/2 inch gap between the holes. So there's a 1/2 inch. Then I came over 3/4, and you notice I got the arrow. That's where I want to start a hole. Came over another 3/4, drew a line right here for spacing. And you kind of get the gist of what's going on here. Let me see if I can sit down and explain it a little bit better. But we've got a 1/2 inch, then 3/4 to my mark, then another 3/4 here, then a 1/2 inch. And what this is between these two lines is where my hole's gonna be. Then I've got a 1/2 inch gap right here. Then 3/4, I mark my center, and 3/4, so that's an 1.5 inch hole with a 1/2 inch space between them is basically what this is. So, but what I'm doing it, and I'm gonna explain it again, is 1/2 inch for the space, 3/4, that gets me dead center, 3/4 again, that gives me an 1.5 inch here, then a 1/2 inch, and I'm just 3/4 and a 1/2 inching it down this thing the whole way, kind of making my own ruler. Now right here, with the 3/4, I did another 1/2 inch here, and I'm gonna cut it off right here, and that's gonna give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. But that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna get 2 of these made, but we're gonna drill this one out first, and then we're gonna do the same thing we did a minute ago. Put an elbow on, pre-drill, mark and go. Pre-drilling is really key in keeping these good and straight. It's much harder to start a hole with a big bit, and it keeps everything nice and smooth. I guess it's just a habit I have. It was instilled into me very well. Make sure everything's good and straight. You gotta love a good sharp hole saw, goes a long ways. Pop the plastic cutout out of it into the trash can. I don't want this stuff all over my yard. Ooh, let me just shake my camera loose. Minor adjustment. Oh, the long process. No. Guess we could speed things up a little bit, couldn't we? The biggest trick to doing this is holding this straight and drilling straight down. If you don't, you'll get these like oblong side to side holes. So just hold it steady. See, I got this board here, I could hold it and it kind of helps keep it from rolling, but you gotta have a steady hand. If you don't have a steady hand, get a couple 2x4s, clamp it to it, and that way it'll hold it straight and it'll make it a lot easier for you to drill. Now, what we gotta do here, I've gotta get my saw out. We're gonna cut this thing right here off flush. Then we've got to get my little Dremel, clean all these holes up. All right, now I got to cut that one. Saw's down here. Be right back. So when you drill this out, there's going to be scoring inside here. You got to take that Dremel and get this nice and smooth. You don't want feed, you don't want anything where any feed or dirt or debris is gonna get kind of packed into. And also this outside edge, you wanna kind of round that off a little bit. And in the ends, you gotta smooth these out really good or the food, you'll get debris. And when you take them apart to clean them, you'll see there's stuff caked in here. And you don't want any mold or anything brewing that you're unaware of. So the smoother this is, nothing's gonna penetrate the edges from where it's been cut. But still got a little work to do on this one, but she's getting there, coming along nice. All right, here is the partial completion. Now, right here, this hole, I'm gonna have to work that back a little bit more because the feeder to get mashed, I thought I mashed in there tight enough, so we're gonna have to take some more of this off. But something else that I do, and I don't know if you can see it. Let me zoom in here, angle it back. Yeah, you can see a little bit better on that one. But I took the Dremel and took this edge off it, slightly oblonged it. You can see it really good there. What does that do? They're eating on this side, and I wanted this kind of smoothed over so they're not rubbing their necks and the sharp edge, because this is not sharp, it's rounded over. They're going in and out. It's not causing any damage on their chest feathers, on their necks. When they're going in and out of this, they raise up, they pop up, they throw food all over the place. So how do you stop them from popping up, climbing over the feeder, pooing in it, trying to hop on top, stick their feet in here and dig at it? Aha. When you put a pipe in here this has a lip. So I am gonna cut 3-inch hole in this board so that it can set on top of this lip and the pipe will feed into it. Since this is a little different style, I'm not going to do a double elbow on this one, which if you're going to do that, just duplicate what you're doing on these sides. Very easy. This one, different design. I'm going to cut a 3-inch hole. I'm gonna put a pipe on it. I'm gonna set it on top of it. Then over here, we're gonna put another board on this side with a 3-inch hole, and I'm gonna attach it to that board. And what that does, if you look here, that gives them just enough space to get their heads in here. They can't climb on it. They can't poo on it. And it keeps them from popping up and for birds from trying to crawl over each other so much to get into the feeder. So now we're gonna get some holes drilled and we're gonna get this set up and make it a true no waste feeder. All right, I got my pieces cut down. Now, I've made this 4.5 inches. That's this wide, plus just a little bit of meat on each side to sit over it. Now, I made this roughly about 18 inches on this. As you can see, I wanted to sit around this pipe and to come over. I made it just a little bit longer, so when I drill my hole and we cut that down, I'm gonna drill a hole in this piece, and I'm gonna set it over this. Then I'm gonna do some little fine tuning, and we're gonna mate these two pieces of wood together. But first, let's get our holes drilled. Little tip in helping you make the perfect hole saw cut. This is a scrap piece. Let's just say you make a mistake and you've got a perfectly round piece of wood. What do you do with it? Split the distance. In my case, it's a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch here. Put a screw here, put a screw here. That makes you a jig or a tool essentially to make the perfect hole saw cut. Take your hole saw and your drill over this, get your bit, it makes a perfect center for it. It starts cutting the outside. Take it up, don't try to drill all the way through it. Take this off, and that's gonna leave you a perfect dead center hole saw cut. There's my tip and trick to get this started. You'll notice right here, I needed roughly a 1/2 inch right here on this bottom piece, but here I didn't. And you'll know right about here, we're gonna take just a little bit off this edge. That way we're just past the dead center point of this circle where it would have been. And then we're gonna Dremel this. Then I'm just gonna lightly Dremel this because that hole saw is just perfect if I jam this in here. And I want it to fit perfectly, and I want it to fit tight. All right, I cleaned up that hole. I cleaned up the edge of this one. Now you see when I was talking about cutting it in half, I didn't cut it completely in half. I left just a little bit more because it grabs onto the pipe. Now that I have this on here, sorry for the measuring tape to the face, I'm gonna check this pipe roughly. That is right at 2 3/4. That's right, oh wow, that's right at 2 3/4. And it looks, man, with it mashed on here, it's actually holding it perfectly straight. So 2 3/4 is space I need from here to the bottom. Well, not to the bottom, to the top. But right here, that is exactly 6 1/8 from the bottom of this to the bottom of this pipe. So we need a 6 1/8 from here to here, and we need to cut it to mate it to this piece. I'm gonna go get that cut real quick, kind of give you an idea of how I'm coming up with my measurements. This is the next step in figuring our measurements. Now what I did is I put this end on here right about flush with the end of the pipe right here. Then when I took the top board and I set it over this lip and popped it on, it actually straightened this and leveled everything out. Now I've went ahead and I got a mark right here on the bottom. Now this is just kind of no-brainer. It takes the math out of it. Cut that piece, put this piece on there, get your mark. We're gonna cut that, run 2 screws in here and just a little bit of glue to secure it. Now let's talk about what this board does. This is key to my no waste feeders. I start them on a small feeder on about a 2-inch pipe. Well, start them on a 1.5 inch pipe, then move them up to a 2-inch pipe. When they get about 4 weeks old, then a 3-inch pipe. I have this same basically design, and I've got a board on all of my feeders. It stops them and trains them to go under the board, stop popping their heads up and throwing food everywhere, and it keeps them from trying to climb onto the feeder, kick it, because they like to kick stuff around while they're eating, and I've watched them try to climb into it. And it also stops them from climbing over each other. It kind of turns some of the chaos of feeding and simplifies it. Works great. I cannot even begin to express it. I have literally 0 waste on my adult birds. You know, once they get up to this size pipe, actually when they're at the 2-inch pipe in my brooder, when I look down into my poo catch trays, there is no food in there. Okay, that's a lie. Every once in a while, I'll see like a long piece of, you know, mini pellets. It's supposed to be mini pellets, but like a huge piece, they flick those away. They can't eat them. You know, they're just not gonna eat them. Anyway, but almost zero waste when they're in the brooder, but it does cut it down significantly. But this is key. It really is having this top board over here. I just can't emphasize it enough. I didn't do this. I actually added this on top of my 3-inch feeders to help keep the moisture and rain from getting inside of them, which I used the wider board. I didn't rip it down. I ripped these down because these are gonna be going into my brooder. Now, you're looking at this design. There's a lot of ways you can do this. My pipe, I've got my brooder big enough. I have the stack coming through one of the boards, which I'll show you. So it's gonna be physically inside. If you have a cage style pen, or even a 3-tiered pen, think about this. Cut a hole just the size of this to fit it through into your cage. Leave this outside your cage. You could still do this and then run this board over to the side of the cage. You could do 2 of these. No, I lied, you can't because of the hole here. Thinking this through, you know, I'm not perfect, but you could be creative. You know, these are custom feeders. Take this design, make it work for you. This is like a toilet cleaning bathroom attachment. This works great for cleaning the wood up, and it gets rid of a lot of the little edge pieces and takes away from doing the extra sanding. This comes in handy. Now, Phillips head, a couple of 1-inch 3/4 screws. Oh yeah, that's gonna be perfect. Then I've got a drill bit. So to make this much easier, so you see I've cut it, it's nice and flush, and I've put everything back on the feeder the way I want it. This right here, it's gonna make life easy. It holds everything in place for you. So first off, pre-drill your screw holes. I always pre-drill my holes with a little bit smaller bit. That way it doesn't split the wood. So let's do that real quick. You know, you can mark your holes dead center. Probably would be wise to. I'm pretty much eyeballing everything. So pre-mark your holes. That way you don't get off and split out the sides of the wood. So we're gonna put this in here. Now, I'm gonna stain this. So I don't wanna glue the end together yet. I'm just gonna lightly put these screws in. I didn't snug them all the way down. So, as you can see here, it's not falling off. It holds the feeder, it's snug, very, very sturdy. I'm gonna love this. You know, I took my first design, which actually, I have my 2-inch feeder right here, my training feeder. Don't mind the short pipe, I've got extra. But this is one of the first feeders I made. And see, hole saw, measure between it, cut a piece to fit between them. And what this one does, I consider it a training feeder. I can only fit 2 fingers right here between this. That really stops them from popping their heads up and throwing food out. It gets them in a good habit of using these feeders. And my smaller feeder, which is like my baby chick feeder, got, you know, I have a slit down it. I don't have holes. A little bit different design, but same concept. Never let these feeders go empty. They will crawl inside of them. They will crawl. I've seen birds crawling every style feeder that's out there just about, unless it's got a little tiny opening. Never let your feeders go empty. They will find a way to get into them. You can do the same thing with that style, shorten it into this one. And if you've got a cage style feeder, make this same design in a 2-inch. Man, it works great. I mean, my 2 inches, it really is the beginning of teaching your birds to minimize to no waste once they're out in your grow out pen or your breeder pen. Guys, this is my feeder. I'm gonna take it apart, do a little staining tomorrow, put it back together, and I'll show you the completed project. But right now, I've got to duplicate this because I'm actually making 2 of these. All right, it's unveiling day. I've been letting the birds use the feeders for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Got them stained up, got them put together, and very happy with the results. This is working amazing. There's no waste. I cleaned the trays yesterday. Every time I've cleaned the trays, I'm not finding a bunch of food in the bottom, which that's a big part of raising quail, is getting them not to waste the food. So let's check them out, let you see the end result. All right, here's my 2 stove tops. Now, these are my caps. I've got them pulled loose, about to refill these, but this is the awesome part. Right here, I've got this other one turned here, which a couple of birds seem to apparently think this is a roosting area, which I find interesting, but cool, we're gonna run with it. But here's what's awesome. There's not a bunch of poo stains up in here. They're not climbing over the feeder. Yes, I'm talking about y'all, calm down. As you can see, no poo stains. And we get over here to this one. You don't see a bunch of poo stains up on top of the feeder. And the most important part, besides me spilling some food, which I just did, shouldn't have put any food in here before I did the video, but as you can see, spilt food. But if you'll really look, besides a little bit of food I just spilt, there's really nothing down here. Yeah, big blooper on my part, but if you look, you can tell this is stuff I just dropped in here. Y'all calm down now, but these are working amazing. Very happy with the results of them. No waste feeders. They hold on here really well. These are snug. I actually don't even have them tapped on all the way. I just stuck them over it to see how it would work, but I'm gonna get a little dead blow and tap that the rest of the way on there, and it is, I got them to fit so tight. There's no way these birds are gonna knock them off. There's very minimal maintenance with these as well. I'm really happy with this design. A little bit different than the other feeders I've been making. I make those like a big U shape. They're just like cut in half, but working great. Worked beautifully for this brooder. You know, it's just works great. Very happy with it. You know, the concept of me building this large brooder was grow them out, get them outside in my larger grow out pen. Got a lot of extra birds right now, so hopefully by this weekend all these guys are going to go outside because they're 5 weeks old, but they're managing the brooder amazingly. I wanted to see how good it would work with birds this age in the brooder. This is my first kind of pen that's wire in a sense, even though I built it initially for a brooder, but it's multifunctional. And the feeders were kind of the big key for me able to use this at many different stages of raising quail if needed. So really happy with these results. You know, I knew it'd work out great. My other, feeders worked really well, but this is definitely a different build. Learned a few things along the way, and how to change things up. And these feeders work great. The shape of them, if you've got a 3-stage, pen or 3-tiered, you can take these feeders and cut a hole in the side, slide them in, keep the food on the outside, fill it. Just works great. So many different options I could use for these just in the future that I'm keeping in mind for those style pens in case I decide to go that route. But very happy with this build. Like I said, try it out, take the build, use the info, modify it. You know, I've learned how to build these from a lot of trial and error, and it's taken some fine tuning to get to where I could make this feeder as efficiently as possible with all of them. So take the info, use it, build it, save you some food cost, and make life easy. You know, these feeders right here, I have to feed them up about every 2 days. I've got about 25 birds in here. No, that's a lie. I've got 30 birds in this one. But 2 days is not bad versus coming out here and feeding them every day. With these feeders, I've got similar setups in my other pens. I come out here and just top them off Wednesday and Saturdays. But in reality, if I only had 12 to 15 birds in here, I wouldn't have to come out here and fill this feeder up once a week and it would be empty every Saturday. But I don't take that risk. I come out and I do a top off to make sure they're never low on food. I don't want to trigger aggression, but take it, use it, put a bigger pipe on it. That way, hey, I could add another 12 inches to this pipe, which I might do that. You know, the feed pipe, I might make it, you know, another foot long and come and fill it once a week. Why not? You know, change it up, do your own thing. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it definitely motivates somebody or gives you some type of vision on how you can do something even better. And I want to see it. Guys, have a great day. Check out my channel, Practical Junk. I hope you guys love it. Love taking junk and turning it into beautiful things like I have out here. Have a blessed day.